Hola, everybody. Welcome back to the Chats with Yvonne podcast, where I talk about public speaking con cultura. And today I am introverting very, very hard. I had two public speak. Can I talk? I had two public speaking engagements within the span of 2 weeks, and I am feeling it. My body is feeling it. My mind is feeling it. Clearly, the way that I'm speaking is feeling it as well. And so, what I want to dedicate today's episode to is just talking about what I do as an introvert post public speaking engagements, because I think it's very, very important. The first thing that I'll do is I'll walk you through the actual speaking engagements that I delivered, what they were like, and where my energy levels were after each one, because they are very different. They were both different. One was more a workshop conversation style, and the other one was I was a keynote speaker. So they both had very different vibes, and I want to share what that was like with you all today, given that we do talk about the intersections of being an introvert, a public speaker, Latina, first gen, all the things, and reflect on all those experiences. So the first thing, as always, with our podcast episodes, I'm going to pull out a card from the Public Speaking con Cultura practice card deck and see what's up. The first card that I pulled out was from La Emoción, which is all around voice inflection. And I want to read the intention card because I think that the way that I structured this isn't that these are the rules, these are how you're supposed to do it, but more so what I hope you get out of practicing these prompts. And it goes like this. Were you ever told that you're too loud, that calladita te ves más bonita, or too quiet, that your ideas are great, but that you should speak up more? Voice inflection has everything to do with el ritmo de tu voz. These cards are meant to give you the practice to elevate your voice con ritmo y a tu manera. So I'll put that off to the side. And I think that's perfect for right now because, like I said, I'm feeling very introverted right now, and I feel a little low on energy, but at the same time, I am dedicated and committed to my goals of elevating and growing our podcast and YouTube channels. So I really want to also show up for myself in this way, because I know that if I let this introversion get in the way of me actually doing this, I'm not going to feel great about myself. And so the reason that I want to dedicate today's podcast episode to talking about what I do as an introvert after public speaking is so that we can actually just talk about it. Because I think that maybe for a lot of people, you may think, oh, the fact that you're introverting means that you're just not going to do anything that you're supposed to do or that you said you would. And I believe in giving yourself the space that you need to feel all of the feelings and at the same time doing what you said you were going to do. So this is me showing up in this way for the podcast episode. I'll start off by sharing what the public speaking engagements were. The first one was a workshop that I led for Café Todo Mujer, and it was Cafecito y Cuentos. This was a storytelling workshop, and the whole idea of it was that we can find our signature topics as speakers by really analyzing and reflecting what comes up in our cafecito and chisme sessions. Those conversations, those themes that keep coming up for us in our conversations with friends, with the people that we love and care about the most, and even the way that we talk about el chisme can really help us decide how we want to lead in our public speaking journey. So, without going into the details of what we talked about, I walked people through a series of reflections that really were centered on let's create a story together right here, right now. And we start very broad because reflection, I think, asks us to do this, and then get really, really, really specific. Then, tap into your senses. What can I see? What can I smell? What can I touch? That brings a story to life for your audience. And what I really loved about this one is that it felt very intimate. Y'all, there's a fly in here. Y me está molestando. Sorry. It felt very intimate. I didn't necessarily have a projector. I had slides, but I didn't even end up using them. I didn't have a projector. I wasn't on quote unquote a stage. It was more a room where there were there was a couch and tables, and we were just all sitting there together. And that felt because it felt very intimate, I really enjoyed it. I love workshops. I think workshops and facilitating learning is one of my favorite things, because it's also facilitating conversations, and it's also giving the stage and the mic to someone else besides myself. One of my favorite parts about it is when people actually go up and speak themselves, and I can see them doing the thing that we're so often afraid of doing. So my full intention with anything that I do really is to have people actually go up and say something out loud. That will remain true of any workshop, any keynote that I do. So after that workshop, it was about 2 hours, I want to say. And we had some mingling time. A few of us went to go have lunch afterwards. And then I had to go on an 11-mile run. And I say had to because it's part of my plan, right? But I didn't feel as drained. There was this moment in time where I was like, okay, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling like my pace of conversation is slowing down. I'm not adding as much to the conversations anymore. I'm more so listening and intaking information. And that was my sign that I am getting there. I'm not quite there yet, but I am getting to the point where I will no longer want to be social. And the really great thing about that is that because I lead with my introversion, Gita, who was also there, I think we were both feeling like, okay, it's kind of time. It's time to head out. And we did that. She so kindly took me to the location where I was going to be running. And I just, the way that community showed up for me in that moment, I felt so held and nurtured that that speaking engagement re-energized me, because it was all just so intimate and very community focused and community based, and it ended with my community showing up for me in this way. I started that time of month right then and there, and someone had the tools that I needed to be able to actually complete my run. Gita actually drove me again to the location. She found a parking spot before I did. She ended up going to the beach for a little bit, and then I was like, you know what? Come take this spot. I'm heading out anyway. I took the spot, and I was able to complete my run because of that. So I was definitely tired after that. I came home, showered, and knocked out. I slept so good that day, and I think it was a combination of the run and the public speaking and the socializing and all of that, and the drive. It was about an hour and a half, an hour and 40 minutes, and which was really nice. So having that time, not only when I was running, I really didn't want to be there, but having that an hour and 45 minutes or whatever it was to sit in the car by myself driving back is exactly what I needed after that, which was no music, nothing. I didn't listen to any music. I didn't listen to a podcast, nothing. I just kind of sat there in silence with the occasional blinker going off every once in a while, and made it home, showered, and knocked out. And that was the perfect ending to a beautiful day of public speaking. The other public speaking engagement that I was a keynote speaker for the annual Hermanas Unidas statewide conference that happened in Long Beach. And this was to an audience of 200 plus people. There were more than 200 people there. And I was a part of Hermanas Unidas when I was in college. I've been a part of this community for years at this point. I haven't been connected as much as an alumni, but some chapters have reached out to me to do workshops for them here and there throughout the years. And I was asked to be a keynote speaker, and I was going to be on stage. Well, I was on stage for an hour and a half. The first part of it was me sharing a bit of my story, doing more of what you would consider a traditional keynote speaker to do. So I was tying the themes together and bringing in my own story and personal experiences that still connected to the people in the room as a way to set the foundation for what we were going to do next. The next bit of what we talked about was I'd like to think about it as a mini workshop of sorts. I walked them through their passion pitch, how to talk about how to lead with their essence. And we did a lot of reflection prompts. Y'all know I love me some reflection. So we did a lot of reflection prompts. We had people sharing. And what was so beautiful about this group was that I had people raising their hands because they wanted to speak. They wanted to say something. So for a second, the first time that I had people volunteer to say something out loud was a mic was being handed out to them in the tables that they were at. Then the second part of it, I actually went over to them, and actually they came up to me for the second one, right? Because I had the second mic in my hand. And I told them, hey, if you want to step on the stage and share, the stage is yours. And I feel like I think that is what's so powerful and what I would have loved to have more of an opportunity to do in a safe environment, in a space where everybody is cheering me on. Many people expressed being incredibly nervous, but still going on the stage, I would step to the side so they could really feel what it was like to be on the stage, holding that mic and sharing. And again, maybe it's just in my nature because I'm more of an introvert that I'm okay with the spotlight because I am a public speaker and it's what I do. I'm comfortable in it, but I don't always want to be the only one there. And those little moments, I think, are kind of my way of giving myself time, the little bit of time that I need to re energize to pick my energy back up and start speaking again. Those moments where I get to share the stage with someone else re energizes me once more and allows the spotlight to not be on me for just a second because I know it's going to come back. And in this moment right now, when I'm sitting here reflecting on that, I think that that's why I do it. And inevitably, right, it is also a really inclusive practice. It's allowing for me to create the type of environment where other people get to be on the stage, even if I am the keynote speaker, even if I am supposed to be the one providing knowledge and all these things. I want other people to hear their voices in the room. I don't want to be the only voice. And yes, if I'm a keynote speaker, I will dedicate the time that I need to have my voice heard. And I will also, this one was very much presented to me as a keynote, but also wanting to be interactive. And those are my favorite because, again, I don't want to be the only voice in the room. I want everybody else. I want all of us to hear ourselves speak. And for the person speaking, I want you to know what your voice sounds like when you're saying something out loud and you feel maybe a little bit of pressure, because that is our practice. There's nothing like engaging in the actual practice and saying something out loud. So just now I realized that I do that during my sessions because, one, it's a little bit selfish in that it gives me some time to think, to sit there and to kind of relax a little bit in between me being on stage and me facilitating learning. But it also is a way for everybody else to also have a voice in the room and not have me be the center of knowledge or the center of facilitation, because I just think that's so important. I know that public speaking can maybe feel sometimes like it asks you to be the center of attention, like you have to be louder and bolder and be present, or that to be really great at what you do, it needs to be just about you. And I don't believe that to be true. I think that when you create the spaces for everybody else to also share their voice and to also say something out loud, you're actually creating that power within yourself as a speaker, and it shines a lot more. I'm biased, I know that, but that's just me. So those were the two speaking engagements that I gave. One was workshop style, one was keynote. And after the keynote, there actually was a networking social hour that I had originally thought I was going to stay for. And after the keynote, I was just so overwhelmed in the best way possible with all of the energy received. I was taken back to my college days, where this is the community that nurtured me into graduating. And it formed a really great part of my success as a college student and graduating and walking the stage. And I felt so loved in that moment. And because it brought me back, I was like, gosh, I want to be here. I want to spend more time here. And at the same time, I know my limits, y'all. I know my boundaries. And so I said to myself, what does Yvonne actually really need in this moment? And this is something that I'm practicing more and more, especially with my people pleasing tendencies. But I live reflect. What does Yvonne need in this moment? What would actually fill Yvonne's cup more? And it's not to say that being in community wasn't going to fill my cup, but also I had these connections with people after my presentation. I had been there maybe about an hour after I had actually spoken. So I had met people, I had connected with them, and I knew that what comes after this is, for me, a little bit of a crash, right? Where I'm going to be like, okay, I'm thirsty. I'm hungry. I can't concentrate on drinking water or having food if I am talking to people, if I am having to be in community with people right now. And in that moment, what I needed was my solo time. So I I told them, hey, I can't stay. I have to drive back to San Diego, which again was like an hour and a half as well, drive back. And this time I had my partner with me. So I like to call my manager, took my heels off, unbuttoned my little blazer shirt, and I was just relaxing. We got home. I actually changed, which was funny enough. We got home. I changed because we were last minute invited to a birthday party, but I was also so hungry. So I was like, I'll go. They got food. Let's go. Just kidding. But it didn't feel like a lot of pressure. It was a family party. So it wasn't like I needed to be any kind of I didn't need to be too social. I didn't need to act. I didn't need to do anything. I was just showing up. And so that was how I ended my night. I got home, showered, and again, knocked out one more time. And then yesterday, which was Sunday, today's Monday when I'm recording this, but yesterday was Sunday, I had a shift at the coffee shop that I work at. And that shift, there were just a lot of people there. And my coffee shop shift did not help with my introverting. I got home. I needed to go on my long run again, and I went on the run, felt really, really good about it. I had the best pace I've ever had since starting this marathon training, and I felt really good. I showered, had dinner, and knocked out. This morning I woke up and I am still a little tired. I can feel it in my energy, but I joined one of my best friend's mom's dissertation presentation, and that gave me energy back. Watching her become officially a doctor after so many years of hard work just gave me all this energy that I felt like I was needing in the moment. And now I'm here. So I'm by myself in the house right now too. There's no one else here, which is kind of nice. The silence is nice. I kind of wish I wasn't listening to my own voice right now, if I'm being honest, because that's how hard I introvert. I don't even want to hear myself speak. But that was a little summary of what went down and why I'm really introverting hard AF right now. So that being said, I want to jump into one of the things that is so important to me as an introvert. Yes, quiet. Yes, being in my own thoughts. Yes, not having plans the day after or even a couple days after. But the number one thing for me is reflection. It may sound so cheesy, but I need time to digest, and I need time to sit down with what just happened and really think about everything and reflect on all of the learnings, because every single time that I speak, there's some kind of learning. I think as a speaker, to me, especially as a consultant, there's so much pressure to be perfect, to say the right things all of the time. And that layered on with the pressure to actually perform and do a great job, just period, really also is part of why I am so drained. What I find to be really helpful is finding reflection in everything that I do that just kind of comes to me. So I want to share with you one of the things that I do, which at any given moment, I am reading multiple books at a time. And don't ask me how many I've finished, because I haven't finished many of them. But actually, the ones here, no, there's two here that are just more books that I open on a random page and read whatever I need to intake that day. But there's one on here that I actually have read in its entirety, and I've read it multiple times. But something that I do is I will pick up a random book, and wherever I land on the page is exactly the message that I needed to hear. So I want to do that live with you all today. And I actually did it before the podcast episode, before I hit record. I cannot talk. See, this is an effect of introverting. I just don't want to be talking. I actually opened up to a random page before hitting record, so the pages are already here. And I'll just go in order of how I have them here. The first book is Healing Secrets of Native Americans, Herbs, Remedies, and Practices that Restore the Body, Mind, and Spirit by Porter Schimmer. And the page that I opened up to is garlic, allium. It says, if you think garlic is popular as a healing herb today, it was even hotter in the past. It has been used by cultures worldwide for thousands of years, and Native Americans were no exception. They used garlic to treat snake bites and wounds. They prepared it as a syrup for respiratory infections, congestion, and colds. And, in what can only be described as a major medical breakthrough, they discovered that garlic could cure scurvy. Scurvy is a serious, potentially fatal disease caused by a deficiency of vitamin C, and garlic, it turns out, is a rich source of this important nutrient. In recent years, garlic has been the focus of hundreds of scientific studies. Researchers have discovered, for example, that when garlic is crushed, it releases a substance called allicin. Actually, I don't know if I'm even pronouncing that right, which has antiviral and antibacterial properties. It has also been shown to help combat infections caused by fungi and yeast. It's even active against flu viruses. Among its many healing compounds, garlic contains volatile oils that some researchers believe can help clear the lungs and bronchial tubes of congestion. Garlic also contains sulfur compounds, which, along with giving garlic its distinctive smell, may be toxic to intestinal parasites. Long before researchers identified these compounds, Native Americans were using garlic to rid people of worms and other parasites. And cool, that's awesome to know about garlic. But when I opened up to this page, the very first thing that I really was reflecting on was that last sentence. Long before researchers identified these compounds, Native Americans were using garlic to rid people of worms and other parasites. Long before I felt like I needed to Google things or read a book to understand how to public speak, or how should I craft this message if blah, blah, blah. That knowledge already existed within our communities. It exists within our communities already. And it's a reminder to me of why I love public speaking so much, because it is storytelling. And to me, using the word public speaking specifically trigger something in us, and maybe it's positive and maybe it's negative, but maybe it's this ideal. And the reason I continue to use public speaking and not as much storytelling or any other word is because this is the way that it shows up in the world for us. And I want us to almost like reclaim and hold public speaking tight and nurture it back into this place, this thing that feels very ours, that doesn't feel like a foreign thing, porque este arte nos pertenece. I say this about running all of the time, even where I just bought a new vest, which has been really helpful. I have the shoes. For my long run yesterday, I took these gummies with me that are the energy chews. I didn't even take one because I'm like, I don't know if I need it. And then I kept thinking to myself, did my ancestors have these energy chews? They just ate what would give them energy. They knew what they needed to nourish their bodies with in order to be able to walk and run for long distances. And so, like running, public speaking, o sea, nos pertenece. We have the tools already inside of us. We need to honor them and actually see them as being great tools and techniques to apply to our public speaking. So that's the way that I've felt like reflecting, or that's what that specific excerpt brought to mind for me. The next book is called Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. I love this one because it almost talks about el chisme, as it doesn't say el chisme, obviously, right? a Latina needs to go and write a book similar to this, but they talk about chisme essentially. You have to read the book, but this is how I interpret it, right? They talk about el chisme as a way of creating community and how we started to have essentially these different belief systems around a particular thing, and where and how belief systems are created and why so many people believe them to be true, to be the only truth. So I randomly opened the page and it landed on, because I've read this book before, one of the things that I have highlighted on here, an excerpt, the note says, which I wrote, behaviors changed because of stories, language, not because of genetics. So I want to read this. I'm just going to skim through it and read certain parts of it, but the ability to create an imagined reality out of words enabled large numbers of strangers to cooperate effectively. Imagined reality. Ahí está el chisme. But it also did something more. Since large-scale human cooperation is based on myths, the way people cooperate can be altered by changing the myths, by telling different stories. Now I'm going to read the paragraph that I highlighted here. Whereas chimpanzee alpha males use their power to have sex with as many females as possible and consequently sire a large proportion of their troops young, the Catholic alpha male abstains completely from sexual intercourse or raising a family. This abstinence does not result from unique environmental conditions such as a severe lack of food or want of potential mates, nor is it the result of some quirky genetic mutation. The Catholic Church has survived for centuries not by passing on a celibacy gene from one pope to the next, but by passing on the stories of the New Testament and of Catholic canon law. So many reflections, because like I've said, I've read this book so many times, but this to me made me think of how we often think about public speaking as this thing that is, some people are born with it, some people are not. Some people are naturally good at this one thing and some people are not. But it's not that oh, because your mother was a great the public speaker, now you are too. It's not the gene that actually makes you an incredible public speaker. And but there is no coincidence that if your mom is a great public speaker, you happen to be one as well. It's actually the stories, right? The stories that we tell ourselves are the things that make us or don't. The stories that we tell ourselves are the things that affect our behaviors and the ways that we approach something. The stories that we've been told about public speaking and who it's for and who it's not dictates our behavior and our connection to the art. So if that is true, then there's something to be said about us unpacking and changing our narrative with public speaking, changing our story to our connection to the art of public speaking so that we can be incredible public speakers in the ways that we were meant to be speakers, not the ways that we're told we need to be speaking. I need to reread this book. Again, y'all, this is what I do. This to me is bringing me back to life, the reflection part and reading someone else's work or engaging with something else that I didn't myself create, and then just thinking about it. Deep thinking is bringing me back to life, because when I don't want to say something out loud, living in my mind just helps me. But this book is called Homebody. And the page that I opened to was a poem called A Lifetime on the Road. I'm not going to read the whole thing, just the first page or so of it. While I was growing up, my dad worked 6 days a week, driving an 18-wheeler truck from one end of the continent to the other. He'd come home after a week on the road. While my siblings and I would be sleeping, the sound of the front door always woke me. The basement we lived in was small. I could hear Mom in the kitchen making him a fresh meal of dal and roti. Dad would eat, shower, settle in bed, but as soon as his eyes drifted off, his boss would call and say, "Get back on the road again." And just like that, we'd catch a glimpse of Dad leaving. When you're an immigrant, you keep your head down and stay working. When you're a refugee and you don't have papers, when they call you illegal, outsider, terrorist, towelhead, you work until your bones become dust. You are the only one you can count on. Every time he started a new company, he'd spend months working for free during their mandatory training period. Funny how they needed to train a man who was fully licensed, qualified, and experienced. After the third month of not taking a penny home, Dad would demand compensation, and they'd offer him 5 cents for every mile he drove. Years ago, while driving a load from Montreal to Florida, he ended up at a hospital. And there's still more to it, which I will finish, but gosh, I have so many thoughts about this one in particular. And this one touches on so many different themes, but especially as a first gen. To me, being a public speaker and getting paid to speak is such a luxury. It is a luxury that I do not take for granted, and that I always am grateful to my mom for having worked as hard as she did so that I could have these opportunities. There is something so weird. That is the best word that I can use to describe it right now, but there's something so weird about getting paid to tell my story, getting paid to tell a story, getting paid to help others tell their story, help others craft their message. There is something very weird and strange that I feel about that all the time, because it feels like it doesn't require me to do that much work. And by that much work, I mean, yes, it is a lot of work to think through it, it is work, right? It does require a lot of energy. I mean, I wouldn't be introverting hard at AF right now if it didn't require a lot of work. But I always think about how crazy it is that this is my life. And that this is my life because in a past generation, this wasn't my family's life. That there was a generation before, that I am the first of my generation to be able to live in this way, to not be tied to a job, and to not do this crazy labor intensive work to get paid, and to be able to demand to get paid fairly on the spot, to know that I am deserving of money, and to not have anybody hold anything over my head, to have this knowledge, right? Like and not even the knowledge, right? Because I think that our parents had the knowledge. They just didn't always have the safety to be able to say something out loud, to speak up. And so the best way, I just cannot describe it any other way, but sometimes it's a feeling of it just feels really weird that this is my life. And to think about the ways that, gosh, what are future generations' lives going to look like? I can't wait for the healing that they're going to go on. I can't wait for the progress that they're going to make in our communities, because this experience alone is already, to me, a huge progress. This experience alone is already a huge win. And I am always incredibly grateful for this opportunity, and always kind of baffled at the fact that I can do this for a living. I still can't believe it. It's really, really crazy. Shout out to all the immigrants, all the immigrant parents out there, children of immigrants. Todo lo podemos. Esto nos pertenece. Nos pertenece. And y'all, I know that technically I'm doing my reflection out loud with y'all here, but something that I'll do is I'll take just one book, open up the page, and I'll do an entire reflection on it. I'll actually go and grab my journal, sit down, and just write. And it's why it takes me so long to read books sometimes, because sometimes I'll just read one page and do like 10 pages of reflections. So in my journal. So that's why it takes me so long to read sometimes. But I really crave deepness when I'm introverting. I crave this deep reflection and connection to things that are beyond me. And yeah, public speaking can feel like it centers you as a speaker so much. And as an introvert, that is what I think I'm introverting from, is the spotlight being on me and being like, this was centered on me for so long. I want to go find things that are not centered on me and just allow me to dive into them more deeply. So, the last book that I will open a random page on, which I already opened it earlier, like I mentioned, is Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown. It is Mapping Meaningful Connections and the Language of Human Experience. The first page that I actually opened up to was gratitude. So let me read what it says. Gratitude. Call me a qualitative researcher, but I'm starting to see a trend here. It appears that many of the emotions that are good for us, joy, contentment, gratitude, to name a few, have appreciation in common. There is overwhelming evidence that gratitude is good for us physically, emotionally, and mentally. There's research that shows that gratitude is correlated with better sleep, increased creativity, decreased entitlement, decreased hostility and aggression, increased decision-making skills, decreased blood pressure. The list goes on. That particular paragraph, that sentence, when I read that, it really resonated with me because I think this is part of my process. I could almost exchange, hey, I'm introverting with, hey, I'm practicing gratitude right now. Because what I am doing is there is this deep connection with self and really appreciating the experience that I just had of public speaking, internalizing it, being really grateful for it, and taking time to just think about it. And that makes me, and this reflection piece makes me more creative because I start to think about my experiences and the ways that they connect to public speaking and how I can help other people really love and connect with the art of public speaking even more. I definitely sleep. Me practicing my introversion, aka gratitude, if we could, kind of talk about them in the same way right now, I do get great sleep because I'm actually really tired. But this idea of decreased entitlement, decreased hostility and aggression, I am so much better when I am introverting. I am a much better person when I'm allowed and given space to explore my introversion. And I think that's beautiful. And the second one, I kind of just flipped the page over once I got to that section, or once I opened up to that gratitude page. But I wanted to read what is on here for calm. Brene Brown says, I define calm as creating perspective and mindfulness while managing emotional reactivity. When I think about calm people, I think about people who can bring perspective to complicated situations and experience their feelings without reacting to heightened emotions. When people describe themselves as calm or talked about other people describing them as calm, I asked a lot of questions. Did they think their calmness was a trait or a practice or both? Did maintaining calm feel like work or like a default setting? Did they see calm modeled growing up? Did they remember learning it? For personal reasons, I've stayed curious about calm over the years, and the themes and patterns I found in the original research continue to emerge. First, whether calm is a practice or something more inherent, there are behaviors specific to cultivating and maintaining calm that include a lot of self-questioning. The process seems to be centered on breath, perspective, taking, and curiosity. Calm is an intention. Do we want to infect people with more anxiety or heal ourselves and the people around us with calm? As the psychologist and writer Harriet Lerner says, anxiety is contagious. Intensity and reactivity only breed more of the same. Calm is also contagious. Nothing is more important than getting a grip on your own reactivity. 2, do we match the pace of anxiety or do we slow things down with breath and tone? 3, do we have all the information we need to make a decision or form a response? What do we need to ask or learn? As someone who has had sorry, y'all, I can't read right now. As someone who has to work on calm as a practice rather than a trait, I've shortened this to 2 quick questions I ask myself when I feel fear, panic, or anxiety rising. Do I have enough information to freak out? The answer is normally no. Will freaking out help? The answer is always no. And I think I also have a default of calmness not necessarily being a trait, but a practice. And what that means is that, to me, I'm in a constant state of learning how to do it and having to be really aware that I'm doing it. And I think that's why public speaking is also a practice, right? Our practice of public speaking, it's not a trait. Again, it's not something that we're born with. It's something that we have to be in constant connection with, to practice, to feel what it feels like to be public speaking, so that we can create those techniques and those styles and those voice inflections and nonverbals and everything that feel unique to us, so that eventually we almost like trick our minds into thinking, oh, this is a trait. This is a trait that I have. I really love the way that I love this question, these two questions of, do I have enough information to freak out? And the answer is normally no, right? The reason, and I'm thinking just myself, right? I would freak out, let's say maybe thinking about a public speaking engagement. The freak out happens with, am I providing enough value? Are people going to judge me if I'm less than perfect? Are people going to think a certain thing about me? Is this outfit good? Right? I don't even have evidence of all of those things being true or not, or happening or not, because they haven't yet. It's all in my mind. So, no, the answer is normally no. There's no reason. There's very little reason to freak out. And will freaking out help me? Will continuing to be in the state of panic and not calmness right before going on stage, while on stage, after stage, is that going to help me at all to get through the public speaking engagement? It's not. So if I think about it that way, what tools can I actually use to help me be calm? What tools can we actually use to make us incredible speakers? So that's a little snippet of what I do as an introvert, is just I ask myself more questions and I give myself a lot of time to deep think and to not hear anybody else's voices so often, not even my own. I right now don't want to be listening to my own voice. I hope that you don't feel that way because you're tuning into this podcast episode. I appreciate you being here. But I am very much looking forward to the next 2 to 3 hours where I'm not going to hear anything but the sound of my breathing, potentially some lo-fi music here and there, but even then sometimes music is overstimulating, so I won't play that. But I'm not going to end this episode with a con cultura segment because I've done enough talking, I feel like, and I just feel like I talked a lot more than I thought I would during this episode, but that's the kind of stuff that goes on in my brain, this reflection piece when I read certain pieces, and what I do to just make sense of the world around me, make sense of the feelings that I'm feeling, and deep thinking really does re-energize me. After reading those excerpts and reflecting out loud with y'all, that actually has centered me a lot more in my mission and my vision with the practice of public speaking. And it makes me really excited to be able to share that with you, because I don't think I don't know that I actually share what it's, I mean, I talk about being an introvert all the time, but what does that actually look like? I mean, I am in my most chill outfit ever. I tried to still look kind of cute and presentable because I was like, later on when I'm not introverting, I'm going to be like, Yvonne, no te pintaste ni siquiera la ceja. But anyway, I'm rambling at this point. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time. What am I saying? What am I trying to say? My brain actually cannot function anymore. I've talked more than I think I needed to be talking for a day where I want to be introverting. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that for the rest of the day. I folded my laundry, which was really nice. I've been doing, usually my introversion leads me to doing things around the house that I've been neglecting the entire week because I've been preparing for peak energy, which is aka public speaking. So I love the moments where I get to just do stuff around the house and dedicate time to doing the things that I need to do and that I want to do and that bring me joy. Later on, I actually have a public speaking consultation in person, 3:30 to 4:30. And after that, I'm going to try to make it out to a nice walk outside and enjoy my time, because I know that tomorrow I'll be good. I'll be fine. And I can people again. Bueno, thank y'all so much for tuning in to this episode of the Chats with Yvonne podcast. I'm excited to hear your thoughts. Remember to speak your mind in the comments, subscribe, Post a review for our podcast. Let me know what you're enjoying about it. Share it with everybody that you know that you think could benefit from it or would like to have these conversations. Thank you for spending some time with me today. You didn't have to, but you did, and you chose to change the narrative around your connection with public speaking. So I really appreciate you spending some time with me today. Now, let's go spend some time with self and continue introverting. If you're an introvert, you know what I'm talking about. So I'm just going to head out now. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Nos vemos a la próxima. Bye, y'all.